Hey there, this is Ross Izzard. This is the Backcountry Fly Fishing Podcast, where we talk about fly fishing in more interesting places. Last week was the first episode of Season 4, and it was a little bit different. We talked about why we do this crazy backcountry fly fishing thing, why we wander off into the wilderness, often alone, to catch, 8 to 10 inch brook trout, or maybe if you're lucky, a really big cutthroat. But in any case, fish that you probably could catch somewhere else. There's a reason that we do that, right? There's a reason that we're not really just fishing off the side of the road. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but it is a little bit different. And the first episode was really exploring some of that, at least from my perspective about why we do this, because it is more than just fishing. Fly fishing is awesome. It's awesome in its own right. It's fun in its own right. But what we're doing is different. It's a different thing, and we do it, I think, for different reasons. So I hope you enjoyed that. This episode, we're going to get back into the nitty-gritty of how we go about doing this backcountry fly fishing thing. And we're going to do that by expressing a principle that I don't think we've talked about, at least not directly. I'm sure it's something that we've talked about a little bit over the course of the show in various forms or fashions. I'm sure I've alluded to it. But I don't know that we've ever really talked about the philosophy of self-reliance. Okay, and so let me just take a minute to explain what I mean by that. I don't necessarily mean that you're like a doomsday shelter guy and you've got a bunker in your backyard. I don't mean that you have to go out for a day trip with a 60-pound pack on you loaded for expedition travel. I don't mean that you need to be afraid of being around other people, or that you need to shove off friendly hiking partners or relationships or fishing buddies. I'm not saying any of that stuff. When I say self-reliance, I mean the belief, well, let me back up a little bit. The grounded belief, and by grounded I mean based in reality, which means that you actually know that you can do this, but the belief that you can rely on yourself, right? And that could mean a whole lot of different things. I mean, it could be skill sets, so relying on yourself to know how to fish, for instance, when you get to that high alpine lake or that stream at the bottom of a canyon or wherever you have to be going. It could mean that you know how to navigate terrain. Maybe that's on a trail. Maybe it's off a trail. Maybe it's in good conditions. Maybe it's in really terrible conditions. It could mean knowing that you know how to take care of yourself. If you got yourself into a bad situation where you were hurt or something bad happened, that you would know what to do and hopefully extricate yourself. Or if you couldn't, you would know how to call for help. Knowing your gear and knowing how to use your gear. Knowing why you have the gear with you. And specifically what circumstances might call for it, how it might fail, how you use it, what you need, what you don't need. And underneath all of that, this belief that you are okay out there on your own. And not just on your own, but if somebody else were to need help from you, you would not only be able to take care of yourself and whoever happens to be with you, but you might be able to help somebody else. And I know that sounds, pie in the sky, like a hero complex, but I have run across people, and you guys have heard those stories here on this podcast, wandering off into the woods with no map and no phone, with nothing but a pair of sandals and an Nalgene. People that are suffering from altitude sickness, people that ran out of food or ran out of water and didn't have a filter, people that hurt themselves, people who got lost. You are eventually, if you spend enough time out there doing this stuff, you're going to run across people who, number one, have no business being out there. It's not responsible. But number two, they may need help. And so self-reliance to me is not just the idea of being able to trust in and rely on myself and not need somebody else to be safe out there, but also the idea that I could potentially help and intervene if I run across one of these cases, which, as I said, I have before, and I'm 100% positive that I will again. It's just the way it is when you're out there. And that philosophy is really key to what we're doing here, right? We're not just going out there to demonstrate self-reliance. We are going out there to build self-reliance. We talked a little bit about this in episode 1, but one of the great things about being in the wild and being in the wilderness, especially alone, but even if you're out with a group, is the fact that it's not recreation, right? You're not just out there because you like it. It's not fun. It's not really even always relaxing. I mean, yes, there's peace to be found there, but it's really about self-development. It makes you a stronger, more resilient, more focused, tougher person. It just does. There is a lot to the wilderness. Maybe one day we will do a whole podcast about the way that our forefathers here in the U.S. thought about wilderness areas and thought about nature as a way to build stronger citizens, stronger men, stronger people. We'll get into that someday, but for now, we just need to start at the baseline that this is not just about being self-reliant. It's about building self-reliance. That is the goal beneath the goal. It's why we go hard places. It's why we do hard things to go catch these fish, because we're trying to connect with something more primal, maybe a little bit more feral, and yeah, stronger than what you get when you're walking around in society. Because, I mean, listen, I'm going to sound like an old man here, but society makes you soft, guys. I mean, when all you're doing is hanging out on a couch in an air-conditioned house and you're not going anywhere, you're not doing anything, you're not getting dirty, you're not getting sweaty, you're not going to places that don't belong to us humans, you're missing out. And I tell you, no matter how great you are in a city, if you spend the time that you need to spend outside and really focus on self-development, you are going to be orders of magnitude beyond that. That's not to talk down to people who aren't into it. If you don't like it, I guess don't do it. But for me, it has been one of the most formative pursuits in my life. I have heard that story echoed again and again and again by people from all different walks of life with tons of different backgrounds and stories. And I believe very, very deeply in it. And all of that, I believe, if you were to boil it back to the bones, comes down to this notion of self-reliance. Now, the reason I bring this up for today's episode is because we are going to talk about how to pack for self-reliance. Okay, I'm going to say a few things here, just as explainers or caveats before we jump in. Number one, yes, I am aware of the fact that in season 1, we did a what I carry episode about what I have in my day pack. This episode is going to look pretty similar to that, at least as far as content goes, for 2 reasons. The first one being that, to be honest, in the first season, I didn't really know what the hell I was doing, and maybe there's an argument to be made that I still don't. But assuming that, we give me the benefit of the doubt, and we think that maybe I've got this stuff figured out-ish at this point, I think we can do better. That was not as complete of a list as I wanted it to be. I felt sort of strapped for time. And to be honest with you, I don't know, going back and listening to it, that I explained it the way that I needed to help you understand it. The second reason is that it wasn't tethered to a philosophy, and I think that was a mistake, because I heard from some folks after the fact who sent me emails about, well, you don't need that, and you don't need that, and you don't need that, and I just carry this, and I've got a Camelback, and that's it, and I'm fine, and nothing's ever happened. And that's okay, right? I mean, I've said before a million times, this is a deeply personal pursuit. Everybody does it differently. Everybody's got their own gear preferences and everything else, and that's fine. You do what you want to do. But I have a very specific set of beliefs around what I pack, why I pack it, and what that means. And I'm going to explain that to you, because I'm not saying that I'm objectively right. Of course, there are different approaches to this. Someone out there will tell me I'm wrong. I'm sure they'll tell me why I'm wrong, and that's fine. I love hearing from you guys anytime. Instagram, Facebook, send me an email at backcountryflyfishingpodcast@gmail.com. Knock yourself out. Love hearing from you. But I've spent a long time doing this, long time narrowing down my gear and deciding what I need, what I don't need, and why. And that's why I believe so strongly in the setup that I have, because it's not about going fast and going light and going easy. Okay. And I want you to sort of come into this episode with the idea that there is a fundamental tension between being ultralight, which is the new fad in hiking and backpacking and through hiking and trail running, and being prepared. Okay. And I would even go so far as to say that they exist on sort of a sliding scale, right? Where you can go ultra light. But to do that, you're going to have to move that slider away from preparedness. You are going to have to sacrifice things that you would otherwise have with you. That could mean that you're carrying ultralight gear that's not as durable and could fail. It could mean that you're leaving stuff behind. It might mean that you don't have enough water. It might mean that you skipped the rain jacket. I don't know. There are a million different ways that can go. But I will tell you that I believe that ultralight hiking and ultralight backpacking, although today we're going to talk mostly about day trips, but we'll get into backpacking, which is a whole different thing in a different episode later on. I believe there is a fundamental contradiction between those two things. And I believe that when you are out there fishing, number one, you really can't do ultralight because you got to carry fishing stuff, right? It's one thing if you're just trying to get up and get down as fast as you can and you don't have to carry anything with you, because all you're going to do is get to the summit or whatever and snap a couple pictures on your phone and then hustle your butt back down. We got to go and fish successfully. So that out of the gate, 6 to 10 pounds. I've weighed it out. So 2 rods and a tube, 2 reels, and a small fly bag with some fly boxes on it. It's 6 to 10 pounds. Maybe you can get it down to 5. I don't know. But that's still 5 pounds, right? That's like 20% of an ultralights pack or even more. The idea that you're going to be able to do that ultralight is wild. I think you're chasing it the wrong way. But beyond that, if you're going to be out there in the wilderness doing this stuff, and especially if you're going to be doing it alone, you're taking a chance, right? You're gambling. You're gambling that because nothing has never happened before, it's not going to happen this time. You're gambling that if something does happen, somebody's going to be able to help you. Maybe somebody else on the trail who was better prepared, or search and rescue, or whatever. But you're taking a chance, right? And when I go out, and I want to be really clear about this, I spend a lot of time going out by myself, often on a trail, sometimes not on a trail, in the middle of nowhere. And it is very common for me not to see a single other human being for days at a time, okay? I need to know that I can handle that I know what to do, that I have the things that I need, and that I am not gambling. It doesn't mean nothing bad can happen to me. Of course, something bad can happen to you, right? Nature doesn't care about you. And no matter how prepared you are, something bad could happen. But I do want to know that I have done everything in my power to be able to be out there responsibly, safely, and in a way that would not require intervention from another person unless it was a true emergency. I broke my leg, or I'm horribly sick, or whatever. I'm having a heart attack, pick a scenario. That's important to me. That's part of my philosophy. If I did not feel that way, I wouldn't go. I wouldn't take the chance, and I certainly wouldn't take the chance alone. Everybody has a different risk tolerance. You make your decision about what you want to do. My philosophy through and through, to the bones, is that I'm going to carry the things that I need to carry to be self-reliant. And that's what we're talking about today. Now, one of the other additions to this particular show is that this time I put together a checklist. I actually had some people reach out and ask for a checklist. It turns out that it's not that fun to go back and have to listen to me talk for 45 minutes about what's in my pack. To write down your own checklist. And so I did you a favor. I made a checklist here that you can take a look at and read at your leisure. You can follow it or not. You can modify it or not, but I will post a link to it in the show notes. You can see everything I have, and then you can do your thing, tweak, adjust, fiddle, whatever. But please do be smart. Don't make bad decisions, guys. And if you have to pick between fast and safe, pick safe. It's the right choice 100% of the time. Now, with that said, let's go ahead and hop into how to pack for self-reliance in a day pack. Oh, and one more thing. This stuff counts even if you're backpacking, right? Backpacking is going to have other stuff. You need a shelter, you need a sleeping pad, you need a sleeping bag and all that stuff, of course, right? But even when I backpack, I carry a day pack that folds down into my big backpack, and then I get it out, and then I pack it pretty much exactly like this. So even though this is for a day pack, maybe it's just you're driving up to a trailhead and you're hiking for the day and then you're coming home in the evening as the sun sets. Cool. But the same stuff applies if you're backpacking. It just means if you go up and you set up a camp and then you're going to hop to that lake or hop to that lake and fish this stream, this still applies. So don't throw it out just because you're like, backpacking is what I care about. Okay, me too. I like it too. But this is still what your pack's going to look like when you were out away from camp doing your thing. So, all right, let's go ahead and hop into it. First things first, and I know this might shock you, but you got to have a backpack, and it should be a good backpack, okay? When I did the last episode, we were talking about the Fish Pond Firehole, which is a great fishing backpack. I used it for a long time, but I was talked into maybe, I don't know, let's say a quarter of the way through last season, I was talked into trying out a Gregory Zulu 30-liter backpack. Wasn't convinced I needed it, was happy with the Fish Pond. I thought it was great. And then I tried the Gregory and it changed my life. It is orders of magnitude more comfortable, much more ergonomic. It carries a lot more weight than the Fish Pond could comfortably. I mean, my day pack ranges anywhere from 25 to 35 pounds, depending on how much stuff I have to bring with me. This was a game changer for me. So much so that I switched to it entirely, and I have not put another day pack on my back really since I got it. It's awesome. So I've had some folks ask about what type of backpack I use. It's the Gregory Zulu 30. It's got a couple things about it. The zipper is a little bit wonky as far as the angle. If you go too far trying to zip or unzip it, it could probably use a little bit better of a shape so you could fit more stuff in it. But as far as comfort and reliability and durability, you can't beat it. So that's my backpack just out of the gate. You pick your own backpack. There are a ton of great brands. There's Osprey, there's Deuter, there are the REI packs. There's obviously Gregory, there's Fish Pond stuff. Orvis makes backpacks, whatever you guys want to do. But whatever you get, it needs to be big enough to hold all of your stuff for Self-Reliance, right? And I have, after a long time of messing around with various size packs, I've kind of decided that a 30-liter pack is what you want. I know that that's large-ish for a day pack, but not really. It's not excessive. And I find that that's the sweet spot where I can fit everything I need. I still have a little bit of extra space, so it's not busting at the seams. And it's still small enough and portable enough and light enough that it's not a pain in the ass to move around. So 30-liter backpack out of the gate is what we're looking for. I'll do a whole episode at some point in the future about backpacks. There's a lot to talk about when it comes to picking the right backpack. We're not going to get into that today, but for now, 30-liter comfortable backpack that fits you. Make sure it actually fits you, because the one that you bought off Amazon probably doesn't. You're going to be happy that you did, especially because you're probably going to be wearing this thing all day, right? If you're wading, it's going to be on you wading. If you're hiking, it's going to be on you hiking. You want to make sure that this feels good on your back. Now, inside the backpack, or with the backpack, I should say, we're going to talk about a bunch of different categories of stuff. And I may or may not hit everything on this checklist here because it's a lot. But feel free to look at the checklist for yourself, and I will do my best to cover the biggest stuff in the buckets that we have them laid out. The first one, probably not surprisingly, is fly fishing gear. Okay, so we're going fly fishing in the backcountry, and that necessitates carrying fly fishing gear, right? I have talked a little bit about this before, but I will say it again for anybody who missed that, or just to reiterate it. I have a very specific fly fishing kit that goes with me everywhere. It doesn't matter if I'm backpacking or traveling or day hiking or just fishing out of my car. This is the same stuff I have with me. I carry one rod tube with me, just one, not two. I shouldn't. Every now and then I might have two because I have a couple of odd length rods that require their own tubes. But whenever I can, I just carry one rod tube. I make sure that that rod tube is made out of canvas, not metal. Why? Well, because number one, canvas is lighter. Those plastic tubes wrapped in canvas weigh a lot less. And number two, because if you're hiking around above tree line and you get stuck in a lightning storm, it's not a great idea to have a metal pole sticking several feet off your back, right? And I'm embarrassed to say that it took me years to come to that revelation. But now that I have, I make very sure that I have canvas rod tubes with me. Inside that rod tube is two fly rods. Yes, there are two rods in the one tube. I put both of those rods in one rod sock. And I know some of you are like making noises over there, but yes, you absolutely can do it. So if I'm going to a lake, I usually have a 9'6" weight and a 9.5" Orvis Blackout 5 weight. The rod sections, you can fit two rod sections in each section of the sock. There are those 4 sections in the sock. You can absolutely fit two rod sections in each of those, which means you can put in, especially if you put, one up and one down, one male, one female, you can fit them in there really comfortably. And then you can roll that rod sock up. You can stuff it in your rod tube, and bada bing, bada boom, you got two fly rods with you in one tube, and that's all you have to carry with you. Okay. Now, which rods I carry vary on where I'm going. So obviously I mentioned at Alpine Lakes, I'm using a 6 weight or a 5 weight. If I'm fishing a stream, I'm using a 3 weight or a 4 weight, probably a 4 weight. We'll get into fly rods in one episode, probably this season actually, but not today. So you can pick whichever rods you want, but they do need to go together. They need to go in one tube, and you can put them in one sock. So there you go. Free advice for the day. You also need to have 2 reels with you, right? Why? Well, the same reason we carry 2 fly rods, which is that eventually you will break one, guarantee you. And if that is the only rod or reel that you have, well, then you're done fishing for the day. Unless you want to tie your fly line to a stick and call it Tenkara, you're probably done. It's time to go home. That means that carrying backups makes sense. It might also be that you have reels that just work better with different rods, right? So for instance, my 5 weight and my 6 weight, they use different reels, right? Because they're different weights, obviously. 4 weights, I could probably get away with just one reel that can cover both, but I'd rather have 2 because you can drop a reel. I once had a marmot try to steal my reel at 12,000 feet. He was not successful, but he tried his best. You could break a reel. You could tangle one up so badly you can't use it anymore. I mean, a whole bunch of different stuff can happen. So I always carry two. I carry them in the regular old neoprene reel socks. I stuff them in my backpack. Yeah, it's probably an extra pound or something, but it's worth it to have a backup for both rods and for reels. The rod tube is stuck down in one of the water bottle pockets on the side of my backpack and then strapped down with the cinch strap there. I also have a landing net right in that same pocket. I carry a Fish Pond Nomad mid-length landing net. I like the mid-length because you can reach out and get those big fish without having to high stick them with your rod and maybe breaking your tip. And I just find that it packs easier because the longer handle does better at sticking down in that water bottle compartment. That's cinched down right next to the rod tube. Make sure you have a leash on that net and that it is connected to your backpack because it 100% will get stuck in a tree or a bush and you won't notice until it's gone. So unless it is attached to you, you should expect to lose your net. I've lost several nets this way. It's better to be able to walk on and feel that pull and say, oh, shit, my net's stuck, and have to go back and get it. So make sure it's got a leash on it. And then I've got my small fishing pack. Okay, so I've gone through a couple of these because it's kind of hard to decide whether or not I want a chest pack or a hip pack because of the way that it sits with the backpack. I think I have eventually landed on preferring a hip pack, but to do that, interestingly enough, I use a small chest pack that can also hang on your belt. I used a Canyon Creek from Fish Pond for a long time. The only problem is that it's not waterproof, and if it's on your belt and you're wading, it's probably going to get wet, which means everything in it's going to get wet, including your flies. That's not great. So I have upgraded to a Fish Pond Thunderhead chest pack, which is a little bit bigger, is fully waterproof, fully submersible. And even though it's a little less convenient to use, the zipper's kind of a funky rubber zipper instead of a regular zipper. And it's candidly probably slightly larger than I need. It keeps my stuff dry, it fits on a belt loop, and it's a good compromise. Inside there I have my same 3 fly boxes, nymph box, dry fly box, streamer box. I have a thermometer, I have dry fly shake, I have floatant, I have obviously my tippet spools on the bottom of it. I have my nippers, I have my forceps, I have weights, I have tippet rings, I have spare leaders, and that's pretty much it. Guys, that's what I have in there. I do carry a small baggie in the bottom of my backpack that has extra dry fly shake and floatant and tippet, just in case I ever run out of stuff, extra indicators, just in case I lose a couple. But I hardly ever get it out because everything that I need is in that bag. And that bag straps to the outside of my backpack when I'm hiking. When I get where I'm going, I take it off and I either put it on my chest or more commonly these days, I put it on my hip, put the backpack back on, and I'm ready to rock and ready to go fishing. And that pretty much covers us for the fishing stuff, right? So it's not a ton of gear, but it's a fair amount of gear. And like I mentioned, this probably weighs anywhere from 5 pounds if you're incredibly frugal up to like 7 or 8 pounds, depending on what you're carrying. It just is what it is. Sorry. Ultralight's not going to happen if you're going fly fishing. It's just part of it. So make your peace with it. Carry your fishing gear because fishing gear is how you get your fish. Now, after the fishing gear, we've got a whole bunch of other stuff that we need. And I'm going to kind of run through this. It's all important, but I'm going to attempt to hit it in kind of order of importance. And by importance, I mean importance for the concept of self-reliance and important for the concept of safety, which are the be-all, end-all for me in backcountry fly fishing. Let's start with the real basics, the stuff that you need to stay alive, right? So that's water is the most important thing. I have lost count of the number of people that I have seen out hiking with just a single Nalgene bottle with them, or like one of those Gatorade bottles. And that's a terrible idea, okay? As a general rule, an adult male who is hiking, and let's say we're hiking in warmish weather, you need somewhere in the neighborhood of 0.5 liter to 1 liter per hour of moderate activity, right? So per hour of exertion of hiking, you need to be drinking 0.5 liter to 1 liter of water to stay hydrated. That means that if you're out for 8 hours, you need to be drinking anywhere from, let's say at the very low end, 3 to 4 liters of water, and at the high end, maybe up to like 8 to 10, depending on where you are. Those needs go up with elevation, they go up with exertion, they go up with sweating, and a whole bunch of other things. And you're carrying weight here. You're not just walking. And so you've got to have water with you. If you don't carry enough water, you are going to get dehydrated. And if you do that in the wrong place or you do that at elevation, somebody's going to have to come and get you because that's a life-threatening situation. Not carrying water is the opposite of being self-reliant, right? It's a really, really bad idea. And for that reason, my backpack has always a 3-liter bladder in it. This is one of those Camelback bladders. It slides in the back of your backpack. The hose comes out the back, and then you can drink it as you're walking without having to stop and unscrew it and put it back and yada, yada. Very convenient. You just get into the habit of drinking it. I almost always have 3 liters in the backpack. If I know that I have a reliable water source nearby, or if I'm covering a lot of elevation, it's possible that I will try to cut a little bit of weight by putting that down to 2 liters, especially if I'm carrying like a big, heavy backpacking load. But even then, it's because I expect to have to stop and filter more often, not because I'm drinking less water. At a minimum, you need to have 2 liters in your backpack at all times. And really, if you can manage the weight, it should be 3 liters. You're probably going to run out of water at some point. So, I mean, you can do the math. If you're carrying 3 liters of water and you need 8 over the course of the day, strong likelihood you're going to run out of water one of these days. And that means you got to be able to get more water. And unless you fancy getting giardia or something worse by drinking directly out of a stream, or I don't know, hoping that somebody on the trail gives you a swig or that you can just power through dehydration. Helpful hint, you cannot just power through dehydration. You will get sick and maybe die. It's a bad idea. Don't do that. You're going to have to be able to get more water, and that means you are going to have to be able to filter water. Okay. There's a lot to water filtration. I was just out this week and I was filtering snowmelt right next to where I camped. I also filter lake water. I filter stream water, whatever. It's wherever I happen to be. There are a lot of different ways that you can do filtering. We'll maybe do a whole episode at some point about water filtration because it's its own thing. But I just carry 2 Sawyer squeeze filters, and these are the ones that attach to a squeeze bag. You put dirty water in the squeeze bag, you squeeze it, which forces it through that filter, and bada bing, bada boom, you got clean, cold water to drink. There are a couple of important notes here. The first one is that those Sawyer filters are great because they go down to 0.1 microns. That means that nothing bigger than 0.1 micron, which is really, really, really small, right? And in fact, much smaller than most of the really scary stuff that you can get. All bacteria, sediment, debris. There may be some exceptions for viruses that can get through, and obviously you've got like heavy metals and stuff that no filter is going to catch. But as far as the stuff that's going to make you actively sick, right? 0.1 microns is the gold standard. It's going to catch all that stuff. The Sawyer filters have that. Other filters may. You need to check the micron rating on those filters when you buy them, and you need 0.1. That is what you want. Maybe less if you can find it. But 0.1 is sort of the main gold standard to make sure that what you're drinking is not going to make you sick. Now, you also are going to need squeeze bags for this. The Sawyer filters usually come with water squeeze bags. I don't think they're very good. They're kind of crinkly and rigid, and they're hard to squeeze. And I found that the more inconvenient something is, the less likely I am to do it. That's true with water filtration as well. So I like to make it as easy as possible. And for that reason, I have these CNOC roll bags. They're softer. You fill them up, you open them up, you get the dirty water, and then you seal them up. You attach the squeeze filter to the end, and you just roll the bag down. And as you roll, it forces the water through the filter. You put it back in your bladder, and that's what you have to drink. Now, I'm a big believer, going back to self-reliance, that you need to have duplicates or redundancies for critical gear. Water filtration is one of those things. So I don't just carry 1 water filter in 1 bag. I carry 2 water filters, 2 squeeze filters. In this case, I carry 1 full size and 1 mini. And then I carry 2 of those CNOC roll bags. Why? Because you could poke a hole in one of the bags, or you could lose it, or something could happen. Your filter can fail. And in fact, if you're using it heavily and you're not backwashing it often enough, it can clog and it doesn't work anymore. You could drop it on the trail. You could leave it behind, whatever. Water's real important, and so I always carry 2 bags and 2 filters at a minimum in my pack to make sure that I'm ready to go for whatever the day might throw at me. I am 100% positive I'm not going to run out of water. I don't need water from anybody else. I'm good. On that same note, I carry salt and electrolyte tabs. I can't remember the exact brand I have. I've also tried the gel. There are powders you can mix, whatever. But you should be taking electrolytes, especially if you're hiking at altitude and really sweating. Combining those tablets with high enough water intake is going to make sure that you are not getting lightheaded, that you're not getting dehydrated, and that you're in good shape. And then to go along with that, you got to have food. Okay, so I know a lot of people were like, oh, I just skip lunch because I'm fishing. Okay, cool. But you're burning a lot of calories when you're out there doing this stuff, especially with the pack. You got to eat while you're out there. And we don't have to talk about specifically what you need to eat. I usually carry some type of meat that doesn't need to be refrigerated. So summer sausage plus nuts plus maybe something sweet that won't melt in my backpack, maybe trail mix, whatever. But I always carry at a minimum 1,500 calories to be out for the day. Yours might be a little more, it might be a little less, but that's the number that I shoot for. I'd like it to taste okay, but to be honest with you, it's not about, having a beautiful picnic next to a lake. It's about putting some fuel in the machine so I can keep going and not get myself into trouble. So right up there next to water is food. You need to make sure that you have food in your pack. Moving on down the list, you got to have navigational equipment. Okay, so this is true everywhere. Even if you're on a trail, it's easy to get lost on those trails. And anybody who's been back there knows it's not that hard to lose your way when you get back there, especially if the posting is wrong or somebody gives you bad directions or you get turned around. It's an easy thing to get lost. And then you can be in big trouble, even on established trails. If you're off trail, the stakes are even higher, right? Now you're navigating serious terrain. You're not near a trail. If you don't know where you are, you don't know where you're going, and you don't know how to get back to where you came from. And if something bad happens to you, they don't know where to come and find you, right? So that's a really big problem. And navigation is huge. You got to have this stuff with you. Now, I usually carry at least 3 forms of navigation at all times. Going back to self-reliance and redundancy for important systems, I've always got at least 3 with me. The first one is my phone, my Mark I phone. I have Onyx Backcountry downloaded on there. Some people use AllTrails, some people use Gaia. There's other systems out there. I use Onyx Backcountry. It's my favorite one. I have the map of whatever area I'm in downloaded, and not just a small area, but a big enough area that I know where I am in general. Because you're not going to have cell reception, so you got to have that downloaded. And I use that usually as my primary form of navigation. But on top of that, I also have my Garmin InReach, which we'll talk more about here in a minute. We talked a little bit about in that episode with Garmin last season. And I have my Garmin Fenix 7 watch, which has topographic mapping capabilities on it. So even if those 2 things failed and I lost my phone, I still have a way to navigate. And in cases where I can make it happen, I still carry a paper map. I don't always have a paper map, I'll be honest about that, but I do my best to have one whenever I can. And I have a compass, okay? And that is a sort of final fallback. It's always good to know how to use a compass and a map. That's a great skill if you're going to be outside. But having those multiple layers of navigation is hugely important because getting lost is how bad stuff usually starts, right? Well, I shouldn't say you don't, because there are stories of people who get into trouble on trails without being lost. But most of these disappearances, most of the scary stories you hear, they start with somebody wandered off the trail and got lost. Once you're lost, you're in big trouble. And that's especially true if you don't have the stuff that you need to be self-reliant. That means that you're kind of on your own. And if you're not equipped to be on your own, you can have a bad time, right? This is where there was a woman from Missoula just a few weeks ago who's been missing. They finally found her and she's died, unfortunately. Getting lost is a really bad, really scary, really serious situation. You need to have all the tools that you need with fail safes and know how to use them so that won't happen. And they need to be with you at all times. Now, going along with that, since a lot of this is electronically based, you got to be able to keep your batteries charged. This is especially true on overnight trips, but it's also true on day trips, which if something goes wrong can turn into overnight trips. You got to be able to charge it. And that means that you need to have a battery pack. I used to carry a 10,000, I think it's milliamp hour. I don't know. Don't quote me on the exact scientific terminology, but I used to carry a 10,000 battery bank. I now carry a 20,000 battery bank because the 10,000 was becoming inadequate as phones get thirstier and their batteries get bigger. I needed to make sure I had enough to charge both that and the Garmin and my watch and whatever else I have with me. And you got to bring the cords, right? I mean, we hit this in that first season episode, but if you don't have the cords that you need to plug your stuff into the battery bank, it's not going to do anything for you. And I know you're shaking your head and that sounds like a ridiculous thing to say, but I have forgotten the cords before. And I know many other people who have too. Check those cords, put them in a Ziploc bag, make sure you've got them in your backpack, make sure that you have the things that you need to charge them, because if you don't, well, then your battery pack's not going to do you any good. And if you're relying on electronics for navigation or safety or communication and you run out of batteries, well, then you're screwed, right? You're out there and you're a caveman now, and you better know what you're doing or bad things can ensue. So carry that extra battery pack. If something does go wrong, and it still can, even if you have all this stuff, you could still conceivably get lost. You could hurt yourself. Something bad could happen. You could get stuck in a horrible storm or whatever. There's a whole bunch of stuff that could happen. You need to have safety and emergency equipment with you as well. Okay, so I'm going to run through a lot of these pretty quick because I think they're fairly self-explanatory, but let's hit them. The first one is a headlamp with extra batteries. I don't like the chargeable headlamps for this. I would rather carry a headlamp with physical batteries, AA's or AAA's. Why? Because I can instantly change them and know that they're good, as opposed to a lithium-ion battery or any type of chargeable battery. When it dies, I have to wait for it to charge. That takes time. And if I'm sitting in the dark, I don't want to sit in the dark and wait for that battery to charge. On top of the fact that those batteries start to degrade, and I never really know if they're 100% after they've been used for a while. A headlamp with regular old batteries in it, P.S., make sure you don't need a screwdriver to open that battery compartment, because if you do and you don't have a screwdriver, well, then you're out of luck. But if you have the physical batteries with you, you always know you can swap them and have light, right? That's on top of the flashlight on your phone, so there's a redundancy for you. But I always have a headlamp with extra batteries. I have an emergency blanket with me, right? Maybe I fall into an icy river and need to warm up. Maybe I need to build an emergency shelter in like a worst case scenario. Maybe I need to use the reflective side to signal somebody. Who knows what could happen? These things weigh like 2 ounces and they fold up to something like the size of a pack of cards. There's no excuse for not having an emergency blanket, and I have one with me at all times. I carry 2 ways to start fire with me at all times. One is a ferro rod, which is a metal pole that you scrape to create sparks and create fire, pretty much foolproof. And the other is a lighter. It's just a small Zippo lighter that I carry with me, or Bic lighter, whatever it is, just because I like to have 2 ways to create fire, because I could fall in, get cold, and have to make a fire. I could get stuck out there for the night, or maybe I'm out there camping and I need to make a fire, whatever it is. I always have at least 2 ways to make fire. And then around that lighter, I wrap quite a bit of duct tape. Duct tape is magic. It fixes everything. You can fix shoes with it. You can fix your tent with it. You can fix your backpack with it. You could tape your annoying partners. No, I'm just kidding. Don't do that. That would probably be illegal. But you can use it for just about anything that you need. And having duct tape with you is always a good idea. Space-saving, weight-saving trick. You don't need to carry the whole roll. You can just wrap it around the lighter. And now you've got one item that serves 2 purposes and really doesn't weigh that much. It's perfect. And that's what I do. I carry an emergency whistle, because sometimes things can happen where your voice gives out or it's not loud enough or whatever. And a whistle is something that search and rescue people want you to have on you. It's something that you really should have on you anyway. If you go back and listen to our interview with Dave in season 1 from the Douglas County Search and Rescue Team, he talks a lot about whistles. They weigh nothing. They cost nothing. Stick them in your backpack. It's worth having. I carry 100 feet of paracord. Again, very lightweight. But if I need it to build a shelter, like maybe I have to build an emergency A-frame, I have it with me. Maybe I have to make a makeshift tourniquet. I hope not, because I'm carrying an actual tourniquet, which we'll talk about here in a second. But that could happen. Maybe I need to use it to lash something, or a strap on my pack breaks. Maybe I need to use it to make a splint. Like I managed to break my leg, which actually almost happened to me this week. And I'll tell you that story in a later episode. But I always carry 100 feet of paracord. Just keep it bundled. You can keep it in the plastic wrapping that it comes in at a Home Depot or wherever. You're probably never going to need it. But if you ever do, you're going to be glad that you have it. Stick it in the bottom of your pack. You'll be happy. And then obviously you've got your emergency beacon, right? And your communications device. I am a huge advocate for having some means of staying in touch with the people back home and sending emergency signals if you need to, right? You are not going to have cell reception in most of these places. That is the nature of doing backcountry fly fishing or anything in the backcountry. You're just not going to have cell reception. And that's a beautiful thing because your phone's not going off and nobody can reach you, and it's wonderful. It really is. I love it. But it also means that you can't rely on your phone without a backup device. Now, I know there are Apple phones that can kind of like find a satellite and whatever. If you want to rely on that, you can. I don't think I would. Personally, I wouldn't stake my life on it. And make no mistake, this is a device that you are staking your life on. It needs to work if you ever need to use it. And for that reason, I use the InReach Mini 2. Yes, it's a navigational tool. Awesome. But it also tracks me, so I can send that information back to my loved ones and they can see where I am. And if my blue dots stop moving for 3 hours, they might know that there's a problem and they need to send some help. It can also send text messages, so I can check in and say, hey, I'm going to push up to the upper lake, or I'm going to do that thing, or I'm heading back to the truck, or here's my campsite. It can ping locations, so you can tell them where you're camping or where you are. And it has the SOS, and they can, I should mention this, they can get in touch with you if something bad happens back home. And yes, I've had that happen too, where I get an emergency text that something bad's happened and I got to get my ass out of the mountains and get home. That can happen too. So it's a two-way street. And if the worst happens, it allows you to push the SOS button, say, hey, I need help, and then be in touch with the rescuers as they work to come and get you. That is the lifeline. This thing is not super cheap. I think they're like $300 or $400. You've got to pay for a subscription to be able to use it. I know it's money, but this is something that, number one, will make your life better because you can stay in touch with the people you want to stay in touch with back home. And number two, it might save your life. It is absolutely worth having with you. And then one final piece on the safety side, and I'm not going to get political on this, but you do you, right? But I'm usually out there alone. There are animals out there. Chances of animal attack are extremely rare. I've run into bears. I've run into mountain lions. I've run into moose. I've never, well, with the exception of a couple of really creepy cats, I've never had a serious encounter with wildlife that would require any type of violence, including bear spray. But it could happen. And there are also crazy people out there, guys. I hate to say that, but I have run into some real weirdos in the backcountry. And you never know, right? You just don't know what you can run into. And for that reason, you need to carry some means of defending yourself. Now, if you are anti-firearm or you want to be double protected, then carry bear spray, right? It's very effective. There are studies out there that say it's more effective at warding off animal attacks. That's fine. I very often have bear spray with me too, but I do also carry a firearm. I do. Some people don't like that. I don't really care. And I have a gun with me at all times when I'm out there. I don't keep it in my backpack. It won't do me any good. I keep it in a chest sling. You guys might have seen that on some of my pictures on Instagram or elsewhere. It keeps it right up front. I can put my phone in the sling. I can put my camera equipment in the sling if I'm going to be filming or taking pictures. And I can put the gun down in the sling, and that means it's right there, ready to use. It's concealed. It doesn't have to stress anybody out on the trail. I don't have to create drama, but it's there if I need it, and I like knowing I have it. That's particularly true if I'm camping, but it's true even if I'm just off whacking around in the forest by myself. It's good to know that you can take care of yourself if you have to. I know the next question is, well, what kind of gun is it, Ross? And I've actually had people ask me questions about what kind of weapon I carry and how do I carry it and everything else. We'll probably do a whole episode at some point about carrying in the backcountry. But for now, you should know that I carry a .44 Magnum Red Hawk Alaskan. It's a fairly large snub-nosed revolver. It is designed to be able to put down bear or moose or anything else in the forest that might give you trouble. It was designed as a guide gun for folks in Alaska, but it's used all over the western U.S. by guides and by others. And it's bomb-proof, right? I'm not terribly nice to my equipment, so I need to know that, like everything else, this thing's going to work. If it's cold, if it's dirty, if it gets wet, whatever. I got to know that if I have to have it, it's going to work. For that reason, I stay away from the semi-autos. I carried a semi-auto for a long time, in addition to potentially not being very effective against a really large threat like a big bear or a moose. It just wasn't something that I trusted in all circumstances. But the Alaskan is something that I do trust all the time. I would never fire it unless I absolutely have to. I hope to God that I never do. But if I ever do, I want to know that it stops what's happening with one shot and that we're done and that I can trust that piece of equipment to work. You do you. You don't have to carry a gun. Of course, legal disclaimer, you need to know the laws in your state. I'm not your attorney. I'm not going to bail you out of jail. Please don't carry a gun illegally and get yourself in trouble on my account. But if you want to carry, you should. If it makes sense and it's legal where you are, I always have a gun with me, and that's just part of my kit. And regardless of what you do about the gun, you're going to have a knife, right? I mean, a knife is like maybe the most standard piece of safety equipment you can possibly have with you on a trail. It is something that you can use to cut paracord. You can use it to cut fishing line or fly line if you had to. You can use it to cut wood in a pinch. Don't know if I would recommend that unless you absolutely had to, but it's possible. You use it to cut fabric. There are a whole bunch of reasons to carry a knife. And one of those is potentially defense. But in all cases, just like everything else, you got to be able to get to it. If you can't get to your knife, if it's buried in the back of your pack, it's not going to do you any good. And so for that reason, I carry just a normal folding knife. It clips to my chest sling, so it's right there. It's accessible. It's right up front. And I've had the same one for years. I mean, I think they cost like, I don't know. I mean, you can spend as much as you want, but certainly you don't need to be spending more than $50 on a decent one. All metal folding knives are fine. Fixed blades are great. Fixed blades are probably better, but they're also kind of awkward to carry. And some people get a little bit nervous if you're walking around with like a K-bar strapped to your chest, like you're, going to Afghanistan or something. But always have a knife with you. That's non-negotiable. It's totally standard. It should be part of your kit no matter what. Make sure you don't forget that at home. So that's basically it for safety gear that's in my backpack. And then beyond that, we've got some sort of, I think like normal day trip stuff, like you're going to be in the woods, right? So carry a rain jacket. Yeah, it's going to rain on you, especially in the summertime, especially at elevation. Those storms come in quick. Carry a lightweight rain jacket. You can pack it into a stuffed sack. They're tiny. They weigh nothing. Throw it in there. If you want to buy a nice one, and you should, get a Gore-Tex one that breathes a little bit. But at the very least, have a rain jacket with you. Carry a lightweight fleece of some kind, right? It doesn't have to be heavy, but some type of light jacket, especially in the warmer months. Obviously, you might need something heavier in the winter months. But carry something light with you that can be thrown on in case you get cold. You can throw the rain jacket on top of that to give you 2 layers. But have that stuff with you so you are prepared for cold and rain and wet and the rest of it. Carry a wool hat with you. Yes, even in the summer. I know people get shocked about this, but even in the middle of the summer, it's still cold up on those mountains, right? You push up to 12,000 feet. It might be 100 down in the city, but it could be 40 up there when the wind starts going. You're going to be glad that you have a hat. So carry that with you. Same thing with extra socks. Especially this time of year, you're going to be walking through snowmelt and streams and stream crossings, and you're going to accidentally dunk your feet when you're trying to land a fish or whatever. And yeah, you should be wearing waterproof hiking boots, but eventually your feet are going to get wet. You're going to be glad to have a dry pair of socks with you. So carry those with you too. I've had the same pair of socks in my bag for a year probably since I've needed them, and I don't even notice they're in there. So it's easy and it's worth having. And then you got to have some sanitation stuff. Okay. If you spend enough time in the woods, you're eventually going to have to poop in the woods. I know you probably don't like pooping in the woods. I guess I don't really love pooping in the woods, but if you're eating right and taking care of yourself and hiking and doing exercise and having coffee and you're going to have to go to the bathroom eventually. And when you go to the bathroom, you're going to need a few things. Okay. The first one is a trowel so that you can dig a hole and poop in the hole. Please don't poop on the ground and not in a hole, because when you do that, number one, I have to see it and smell it later. Number two, it's just kind of gnarly, and really disrespectful. And number three, it's sort of a health hazard for everybody involved. So let's just dig a hole, use the trowel to dig the hole. Don't use the trowel to move the poop. That's important. Some people do that. Don't do that. You don't want the trowel to touch the poop. You want to dig a hole, you poop in the hole. Then you're going to use the toilet paper that's in your bag. You're going to put the toilet paper in a Ziploc bag inside your bag because you're fly fishing and there's a high likelihood that things in your bag will get wet at some point. Toilet paper doesn't work when it's wet, as you probably have noticed. Putting it in a bag will keep it dry and make sure that when you have to poop in the woods, you're ready to go with that dry toilet paper. And then you're going to want, and by the way, I'll mention this, put the toilet paper in the hole with the poop and then bury all of it, please, thoroughly, not just a little bit, not like a couple sprinkles of dirt. Bury it like it's a funeral and then move on with your day, okay? And then finally, use antibacterial hand wipes on your hands afterwards, right? Or hand sanitizer, whichever one you want to carry. I like the wipes. You should be doing that before you eat. You should be doing it after you handle fish and messing around in the water. You should definitely do it after you poop, particularly in the woods. And being able to be clean and hygienic out there is going to keep you from getting sick. And also, it's just going to decrease your ick factor, right? Like, I mean, if you're married, your wife doesn't want to know that you're gross like that, right? And if you're trying to date, I mean, nobody wants a guy who eats with poop on his hands. So you gotta be clean because it keeps you healthy and because being clean is cool, even when you're in the woods. And that's pretty much it, guys. I mean, you can go through the whole checklist here. Like I said, I'll post it in the show notes. You can take it, modify it, change it, send me a note if you think I missed something. But this is pretty much the whole deal. I have my backpack and I have my chest sling, and I have everything in there to know that I am okay by myself in very remote areas for at least a day and maybe longer, depending on how long I'm planning to be out there. And I know that I'm not going to need someone to help me. I'm not going to need someone to come and get me. I'm not going to have to rely on somebody else. I am self-reliant. Yeah, it weighs a little bit. I mentioned earlier, this weighs anywhere from 25 to 35 pounds, depending on how you kit it out. That's not light for a day pack, but it is what it is. You can choose to go light or you can choose to go prepared, and I always choose to go prepared. So guys, I hope you're getting your packs ready. It is already height of fishing season, but I know that at least in some places, there's a lot of snow still up there. Some of you might still be getting ready to get out there and hit it, but I hope you're getting your packs ready. I hope you're getting ready to get out there and start hitting these backcountry locations and ripping lips. And I hope you're having a great week. I'll see you back here real soon. Till next time, this is Ross, and maybe I'll see you out there. But hopefully not to bail you out.